So it's my pleasure tonight to introduce our speakers, Federico Castillo and Michael Wehner, who will be talking to us about a trip to the Mint in Mexico City. Take it away, boys.
So this is a report on a trip that Federico and I made to Mexico City. Now we went there for our day jobs. Federico is leading a project, and he's very graciously invited me to be part of it. And we had our nice meeting at the Casa de California. Okay, so it was November when we went for our day jobs, and we did some sightseeing. And it turns out there are two numismatic museums in Mexico City that are definitely, each was definitely worth the trip. We're going to show our highlights from the Old Mint uh, museum, but there's another one in the Bank of Mexico. And that one is actually very nice. The lighting wasn't quite as good, and the pictures I'm going to show I took with a cell phone, so you apologize for some of the quality of it, but you'll get the idea. The one in the bank is interesting in that it's definitely more for the general public than the diehard numismatists of Federico and me. But there was some interesting things in it, particularly the counter stamps. And for me, it was a real privilege to be there because I was there with an expert on Mexican counter stamps, and Federico was telling me about the different farms and the political stuff. And so, did you have any comments about those counter stamps, Federico?
Yeah. No, no. This was, a lot of revolutionary issues. Farm money used by farms. Mexico. I'm gonna say out front has a numismatic universe that is huge, as most of you will know or might think. Right, that is huge. There were, so. Um, just money expresses itself in so many ways, including counterterms that we saw at the Banco de Mexico. That was Michael.
Yes, yes, and it's worth going to both museums if you're in Mexico
Yes.
City for sure. For me, the highlight of the bank were those counter stamps because that's an exhibit that you're just not going to see anywhere else. Anyway,
No.
let's get back into the Mint. This was the entrance. Rather unassuming. It was a little hard for us to find. We had to walk a ways from the. We went to the bank first because they had to sign up for the bank, and they couldn't get into the afternoon. So we walked over here, and there actually was no one waiting. And for a while, I thought we were the only people there.
Yeah.
This is a picture of it. Or inside. After we went through security, we went inside, and I don't know if you see my cursor, but in the far end is where the museum part of it, where the exhibits were. There also were some special exhibits that were basically above us that we didn't have time to see. And then in that corner on the left, the far left, we got to go into where they clearly were manufacturing, and there was some old equipment there, some really interesting old scales, one of which was made in San Francisco. Federico, did you want to comment on
Yeah. I,
this?
I just want to say that this building is beautiful. It's well maintained. You can tell they have done some restoration. I have been at a couple museums, numismatic museums in Latin America, like Santiago, Caracas, Costa Rica. The thing with the Mexico Museum is that is the real deal, right? So it's not like you go to Costa Rica to the Numismatic Museum, is in a modern building because we basically destroyed the building a long time ago. Same thing in Santiago, but here is the building itself, um, and beautiful setup. It really gets you into the numismatic mood right away.
Yeah, I think the authenticity of it is really should be apparent from this picture, but it certainly was set the mood, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So, just about the can you say it's Casa de Moneda de Mexico? Is that I don't speak Spanish, so I'm not
That's
going
the
to
mint.
get
Yeah.
this right. But it was the very first mint in the Americas, established in May of 1535, which is really a long time ago, and it's on a historic site. It's on Montezuma's house, they call the Black House, and this is where he went to meditate. And so, it was an important site, and it remains this site apparently. Um, and as you saw, it's kind of a cool building. And the mint mark, of course, is this very classic M with the O on top of it that is, signed on coins made there, from the beginning, I suppose.
Yeah, this is something that you see typically in Mexico City. Do you see the pre-Spaniard stuff and the Spanish buildings colliding, literally speaking, or one on top of one another? So this is a good example of that kind of cultural clash. If you go to the Zócalo, which is the main square, you will see the cathedral built on top of pyramids because the Spanish wanted just to kind of erase for the time being the whatever it is that the Aztecs had. So this is no exception. So the house, main house, was built on
Indeed,
Montezuma's meditation grounds.
you took me to that cathedral, and we did stop and see the top of the pyramids that it was built on top. And
Exactly.
from that you get, it's really quite clear that people have lived in this place for a very, very long time.
Yeah, it's the only place where you see the pyramids from the top to bottom. Actually,
Yeah, that was true. That was true.
that's good.
That
Yes.
was fun.
Anyways, that was funny. Okay.
So let's get into the metals, and we've sort of divided this up into topical areas of the different metals that we saw. Now, there were also a lot of coins there, and Federico spent more time with the coins than I did, but I didn't take any pictures there, so you're going to get metals. And the first set of metals are really the royalist metals, of which many of which we're going to see here were so-called proclamation metals. And I'm going to ask Federico to talk about that. But before that, I want to say that there's a really excellent new book by Christopher McDowell. And he gave a talk about his book. It's called the Early Betts Metal Companion because a lot of these proclamation metals are in the Betts catalog. But this link is a link to a video he gave at the American Numismatic Society. Now, the metals that we're going to see here, the royalist metals, are Carlos III, fourth, and a little bit about Fernando. Did you want to say anything about proclamation medals?
No, as you will see later, yes, I do actually. As you will see later, well, proclamation medals are what they are, right? Proclamation medals, but they were issued by societies, individuals, powerful individuals, not necessarily government institutions, and not necessarily the king. I mean, there were medical societies or other folks who issue proclamation medals just to because to state their allegiance to the king and the queen sometimes, both, right? But yeah, so proclamation medals, people tend to think that that's the sort of the king made him, but sometimes he did and sometimes he didn't. Otherwise, members of society were the ones issuing the proclamation medals, and the engravers will be commissioned to do this job for these entities, not necessarily, although it needed approval from the king, that's for sure. The king wanted to look good. So, okay.
One of the things that McDowell said in his lecture was that these were pretty big. A lot of them were 8 reale size or 4 reale size in silver.
Mm-hmm.
And the in whatever town they were in, the prince, the king's agent, whatever his title would be, would 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 have these made, and on a given day they would have some celebration, and they'd either give them out or they throw them out or something. And if a family got one of these, it was a lot of money, but they kept them and didn't necessarily spend them because the king is there by the grace of God, and so there's these were very religious people, and so oftentimes these things were kept sort of as family heirlooms rather than cashing them in for the silver value, which was substantial really for many people.
And some medals were not only 8 reales, there were 4 reales
Yeah.
medal, like El Caballito, which we will see later. It has a 4 reales, 2 reales, and 8 reales version. So, yeah.
Well, it is a lot of money for a poor family, but they kept them anyway,
Yeah.
apparently. So the first one is not a proclamation medal. It's a really interesting medal from Carlos III. On the back, it says El Merito for a merit, And this medal is documented as actually an Indian peace medal because they've dug them up in Louisiana at Choctaw uh, uh, Native American sites in silver. And actually the small size, I think, and the large size. There's a larger size. This one's a smaller one. The medal was struck for a number of years. For the records are that it was first struck in Madrid, not in Mexico City, and it's not clear to me if it was struck in Mexico City. Um, I tried to look up these medals in Stax and Heritage and CNG because those are the English language ones. I didn't not look into the Spanish American Spanish language auction houses, and I'm sure there are more there. But generally, these medals are quite rare. This one in particular, the first one that really showed up in these three auction houses was in 2018 and got a fair amount of money. Was also a really nice uncirculated example like this, and the cataloger said this wasn't known. There is some documentation on this. I put a link there that talks about the link to the Indian medal, but it was also thought to be used as a military award, so it may have had more than one use. It's a beautiful medal in very high relief, very well done. Did you want to say anything about this one?
No,
We can go on.
I will interrupt when I
Yeah,
want.
well, this is where you're going to really interrupt because we're going to talk about some of the engravers here. And this first guy, Geronimo Antonio Gil, is undoubtedly the most important and certainly the highest caliber engraver in this series. He was Spanish. He was the chief engraver and administrator of the Mexican Mint, so he was the boss. And importantly, he founded something called the Academy of San Carlos in 1781, and this was actually at the Mint for a while. And his art collection became the basis for its gallery of painting and sculpture. And so not only was the mint the first mint, this was the first academy of fine arts and engraving in the New World, and the art museum was the first in the New World. Federico, I know you have something to say about Mr. Gill here.
No, no. Jeronimo Antonio Gil was the is he's considered among the founders of Mexican art, so to speak, from the colonial times. He's big. He was trained. He had a well-rounded education. He was an sculptor trained as a sculptor, as a painter, as an engraver. And when he was sent to Mexico, this guy had a mission. He had a mission on creating a academy of art, and he had that vision to create the Academy of Art, which was basically a place where they will train individuals to become that sculptors, painters, engravers, and to work on all kinds of metals at the moment and different techniques. Now, Antonio Hill, my understanding is that he was not rich in where he was when he was in Spain, but when he got to what was called New Spain, to Mexico, he somehow managed to buy item by item, exchange items, and so on and so forth. So his collection became actually very well, a very good quality and number, and in terms of quality. So he was also to be known as a despot. He was rough on his students and others. There are letters of his sent to Carlos the third, I believe, or the fourth, not the fourth, where he complains about how lazy they are because they were complaining about him. In other words, they had sent letters to Spain saying, this guy is a despot. We don't know what to do. And he was defending himself. So he was known to be rough on people, but he was a genius when it came down to art. And he designed a lot of medals, as we will see later. Uh, he's the founder of the Academia Real de San Carlos, and he was his director for a very long time. Well, actually, until he died, I believe. So, very good artist, a lot of paints, but definitely a great engraver, as we will see in a second on his medals.
So this is the first in a series that we either we know for sure were from Gil or I think they are, and Federico I think does as well. This one is from his academy that we just talked about. Um, it's now called. Can you say this in Spanish?
Escuela Nacional de Bellas Artes, which is the National School of
National
Fine
School of
Arts,
Fine Arts. And like I said, is the first art school in the Americas and the first museum.
more or less.
This one's cataloged. It's an excellent portrait for this period. It's um, as good as anything else in Europe, as far as I can tell. I mean, it's a very nice late 18th century portrait. Um, Not many of these have come up for sale. I mean, you can see in 2009 it wasn't worth that much. A silver one in came up in recently in CNG. As I remember, that one was particularly was kind of worn. Wasn't didn't look like this one, which is that was the other thing about these medals in this collection. They're all just pristine. Do you want to say
Uh,
anything about this one?
yeah, I just want to say that the Real Academy of San Carlos was actually funded by the king. So the king was sending some money to the Americas to make this work. Hill was disappointed with the first installment, but these engravers that we will see later, they were also sort of politicians. They had to fall in grace. They had to, get in good terms with the king or the queen or both. And eventually, the second and third installments for the academy were much more generous on the part of the king. So it was funded like to the tune of 4,000 pesos or 4,000. I don't remember the exact denomination, and then 800 pesos on a tax in Mexico, which people were not happy about. But it was mostly funded by the king. He was running the show, but he was spending the king's money, which is not
So
a bad deal.
as far as chronologically, we're out of order. Of course, this is the death of Carlos.
Yes.
Some of the ones with proclamation, but I would point out, and you probably can't see it here, but Gil signed this, or he'll sign this on the shoulder, and I'm going to point out a little bit more about that in the neck and some of the other medals. Here's the reverse of one. This one is from the Royal Academy of Spanish and Public Law, and the figures, the allegorical figures here are. Prudence, justice, fortitude, and temperance. And now around the rim, it is in Latin and says the most prudent wins and triumphs, which I guess is something that would to motivate law students. Um, it's in silver, um, and again illustrates to me, the artistry of the engraver. Did you have anything to say about this guy?
No, you will see the Gills medals and a couple more engravers right before independence. They were using a lot of the traditional European artistic tradition. The trend, they just brought it to the Americas. But after independence, we will see that this kind of design changes dramatically because they wanted to break away from Spain, of course. So you will see later on the Iturbide.
Yeah, that's a good point. This is very much in the style
Yeah,
of of, of French medals of the Napoleon and Louis,
even a couple
especially
German
Louis
medals.
the 14th. The reverse of his medals. He had a series of medals in 1695 and 1705 and later, and they look a lot like this too in that
Mm-hmm.
sense. This is an obverse of a proclamation medal from Mexico City. And what I wanted to point out is he signed it. You can see it here, G.A. Gil, or Gui. How do you say it again in Spanish?
Jerónimo Antonio Hill.
Gil, okay. Um, and as far as I can tell, he only signed the obverse. Um, the reverses don't seem to have any signatures. But this is, the very classical kind of a proclamation medal. I think it was 8 real size, but I don't remember. But it's a very nice portrait again.
And so somehow these guys managed to put the Order of the Golden Fleece in every single medal and portrait of all the kings. Uh, Here you can see they barely made it fit
Is
into
is
the
that
medal.
this is that this
Yeah,
emblem right here?
yeah.
Okay.
I, I know it's very important. I have never researched why, but all the medals have the Order of the Golden Fleece. Even when they have a profile, you can see the contour of it.
Oh,
So,
cool. Cool. Here's a reverse of one from the consulate of Mexico, presumably also in Mexico City.
mhm.
A really interesting, allegorical figure of Mercury, I suppose,
Mhm.
um, with his caduceus and his winged helmet, and a ship.
So,
I guess they're trying to tell us they're going fast.
mhm. So the consulate here is not sort of a diplomatic corps, ambassadors. Actually, the consulate was a merchant guild, a group of merchants, of which you could only be to belong to the consulate. You needed to be a Spanish, so you were a merchant from the peninsula, as it is called, right, from the Spanish peninsula. You were probably well-to-do. They control most of the commerce coming in and out of Mexico. So that's what the consulate is here in this case. Is a group of merchants, and they are the ones who issue this particular medal.
And that really explains then I didn't know that. That really explains the symbolism on the back on the verse. You've got a boat, for trade, and we're fast, and so we've got fast ships to take silver from Mexico to
Yeah.
Spain and bring stuff back from Spain to sell for more silver. This one is from the Bishopric of Puebla. Um, Another interesting, reverse with a bishop's I don't know what you call it, his crown instead of the royal crown, I suppose.
No, I forgot. Mitra in Spanish is Mitra.
Beach. Okay, yeah,
I
yeah,
have no idea what they're saying.
yeah. I don't know what it is either. I went to Catholic school a long time ago.
But you have the keys, right? You have the keys of
Yeah, there's the key, right? There's a key
here,
here,
two of them.
cross
Yeah.
key. So that I guess and this probably is the Pope's hat.
And you can see his signature on the bottom left, sort of
Oh, right there. Yeah, I
as
missed
almost
that.
7 o'clock. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Because he didn't. A lot of the other ones I've looked at really hard and I couldn't find signatures, but I
Mhm.
did this one. Here's another one, Veracruz. And I'm presuming that the symbol of is has something to do with uh with the city of Veracruz. Says but you see its proclamation is just right there, so you know it is a proclamation medal. Another really nice piece from Mexico City again. Um, and it's got this one has the Mexican eagle, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more in the past as we get along. And some more symbolism with again a royal crown. Anything you want to say here?
Nope. Except that actually, now that I think about, I'm sure there are others, but the Mexico City, some medals have the eagle, as you can see early on. No, this is 1789, but you don't see eagles elsewhere. I don't recall seeing medals with
Yeah,
eagles from, say, Veracruz or whatever.
this might be the earliest one
I'm
we'll.
not saying that doesn't exist. I'm just saying I don't
Yeah,
recall
yeah,
seeing
it's the earliest one we saw anyway.
them.
And this one is from miners of how do you say this town?
Yeah, Guanajuato.
Guanajuato. And so
Guanajuato is currently a state, of course, very important with mining. Um, and I think that you see now how different themes play into the king's proclamation. Um, so what you see here is a mine or workers, working on the mines. Yeah, but anyways,
what are the silver mines here?
yeah,
Because they mine other metals in Mexico, I'm sure.
I'm sure. But silver was king, so
Silver was the big deal, wasn't it?
silver and gold.
Zacatecas
Hmm.
and another interesting ornate reverse. And again, we think these are all Gill. Um, I suppose if we did more research into the catalog, the Grove catalog, we'd know for sure. But the style is consistent across these models of him.
Hmm.
Here's another one that's signed, and like I said, it's the obverse that seem to be signed. This is Carlos IV, and this is also apparently due to mining. We only saw one side of each of these metals, and so it was really kind of hard to know exactly what this thing's about. Um, this guy's nose isn't as big as Carlos, so if you noticed, his son didn't have quite the huge nose that Carlos III had. This is Carlos IV again, but it's celebrating the birth of his son Fernando, who became Fernando the Seventh, and it's the only Fernando medal that we saw in the collection. Um, Again, this is from the miners of New Spain, but it's an interesting reverse. Again, you've got this radiant sun, shining light on on this family. Presumably this is Carlos IV, and baby's in there somewhere.
Hmm.
Anything you want to say about this one?
Nope,
Okay.
just nice.
Yeah, it's nice. It's a beautiful. I love to have a medal like this in my collection. Um, this one that's sold. I didn't know. I couldn't find the date of this e-auction, but it's not really that expensive. But of course, it probably didn't look like this one. Another Carlos IV. This is from a person
Hmm.
in Oaxaca. Federico spent a lot of time in Oaxaca. He's done a lot of really important work in Oaxaca. You visited a lot. What do you want to say about Oaxaca?
Yeah, well, Oaxaca is probably the most indigenous. I don't want to say I might run into trouble, but Oaxaca is one of the very indigenous, together with Chiapas, indigenous states of Mexico, and but it was very important during the colonial times. I tried to look into this person here, Alferez. He was an Alferez. Alferez is a military rank. Jose Maria Loreto. I couldn't find a thing about this person, and for this person to, you know, have made a proclamation medal is quite important. Now, I just want to point out, as we'll see later, together with Iturbide and other rulers, even though the medal in this case says Oaxaca, or it was ordered, it could have very well be being made in Mexico City or some other mint. For example, some of the proclamation medals of Central America were made, if it was from Honduras, if it was from Guatemala, it could have been made in Mexico. If it was from Honduras and Nicaragua, it could have been made in Guatemala. And so, even though it's Oaxaca, it could have been made elsewhere. And I just noticed a big crack on the left side there in that metal. I don't know.
Oh,
Uh,
right here. Yeah, yeah, die crack.
yeah.
Yeah, that's
But
interesting.
anyways, beautiful metal. But I could not find information on this person. But I would say it didn't have to be made in Oaxaca. Let's put it that way.
Well, I will say that I could not find any auction records of this in the three auction houses that I searched. And like I said, all these metals are rare. But when you look through these archives, which have thousands and thousands of tens of thousands of metals in them, and you don't find one, that speaks to the rarity.
Could be a sample. Yeah.
Well, or like I said, I didn't look in the Spanish language auction houses that you are more familiar with, and my guess is that there's more of them in those because that's likely where the most of the collectors are, I
Yeah.
would think. But that's something we can talk about maybe as a group. This one has Carlos IV and his wife Maria. Um, this one's from the Archbishop of Mexico and has her portrait on it. And what I noticed on this one is I could not find a signature. It's another high quality engraving. It could easily have been Heel, um, but I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Uh, there are not many medals with the queen on it. There's only a few.
Well, we don't know what's on the other side either. It could have his name. It could have him on the other side.
Right. No, I'm just speaking about the fact that we don't have many medals with the Queen
Yeah.
anywhere. I know 4 or 5. I'm sure. Look, there were hundreds of medals made for proclamation, and what we're looking at is a very small segment of that cosmos universe.
Yes, indeed, indeed. But still,
Yeah.
it was a privilege to see this collection. I mean,
Oh yeah.
I
No, no.
really enjoyed it. Here's one with the two of them. This is from the university, and which I guess the University of Mexico is now UNAM. Is that? Would you say that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Uh.
our great collaborator Armando Sanchez, who when we were in Mexico City took us all around. In fact, took us to see the library, which is this fantastic building that is painted in bright colors with Aztec imagery, on this building. This is fantastic.
Mhm.
This one I think is signed Gil. Like I said, there's cell phone pictures, so it's not the greatest, but that's what I thought was on it.
Mhm.
And this was the couple, of course.
And you can see the Order of the Golden Fleece right there. It's
Oh
squeezed.
yeah, right there again. Yeah, yeah.
It's,
Wouldn't call them a handsome couple, however,
uh,
but they were king and queen, so. This one is for the queen because it's for her, I guess her court, the Royal Order of the Ladies of the Queen.
yeah, I thought that it was for her court, but it's actually not.
Oh,
I
okay.
did a little bit of research here on this, uh, and I found out that this order was funded in Spain, not in Mexico. And this was to, I guess, to honor, among other things, the philanthropic work of noble women, which included not only Spanish noblewomen, but also from other royal houses in Europe. So this medal depicts that. I thought it was the queen and her helpers, which were actually sometimes those who were assisting the queen on everyday activities were part of the noble families, wherever she was at. But it turns out that this is an order actually that was given to noble women, again, not necessarily from Spain, but mostly from Spain. I also learned that this order is still active but dormant because King Juan Carlos, the guy who was king before his son Felipe, who is now the king of Spain, Juan Carlos sort of let it die. He didn't want to deal with this order of the ladies anymore. So he basically didn't appoint anybody to run it, or he didn't let his wife Sophia run the show. So this order is not dead, but very dormant.
Thank you.
Mm.
All right, this one is interesting. It shows a statue of a horse, and we saw this, and the locals call it El Caballito, the little horse, and that's not a compliment. Um, it actually is the second largest cast bronze in the world, and this Marquis de Brancefort, who was the viceroy, sponsored it to try to get in good with the king, and we believe this medal was part of a subscription to raise funds
Mhm.
to make it. The sculptor is a very famous Spanish sculptor at the time, and Manuel Tolosa. It is a big statue, but like I said, the nickname is not a compliment.
Yeah. And again, this is one of those few medals that exist in gold and silver and in different denominations. Okay. I have the two on
What
the
does this word mean before reverse? Calamina.
what's up?
What does this word mean, calamina?
I don't know. Calamina is it's a medicine nowadays. I don't know. I don't think that was I don't know.
I don't know either, of course.
Okay.
All right, so we're going to shift gears now. We're out of the royal guys and we're into Agustin de Iturbide.
Well, Iturbide. Oh, the first royal post independence.
Oh, yeah, so he's an interesting guy. He was a key figure in this Mexican War of Independence. And initially he was on the side of the king and the royalists. But in Spain, Fernando was having troubles, and it looked like he might lose the throne, and so he changed sides and went with the rebels, and they prevailed, and I actually think he was he clearly knew what he was doing, and was in many ways ahead of his time. He had this plan of Iguala, the three guarantees. And the three guarantees were that Mexico would be ruled by a monarch, and that monarch would be Fernando if he couldn't keep his throne in Spain, or some European um, uh, um, member of a royal family, some European, presumably related to Fernando, but appointed by Fernando. So that was the first guarantee, and that was reached out to the rich people, who were all Spanish. The second was that Roman Catholicism would be the official religion of Mexico, and this was to placate the church. And then the third one was really interesting in that there would be no discrimination, that all males, regardless of whether they were European or Mexican born or half, European and half indigenous, no matter who you were. And so that really appealed to the general public. And in many ways, I think, for this time, 1810, that's kind of, ahead of its time. I mean, maybe they were taking some of those ideas from the American Revolution. I don't know, but I found that really quite interesting. And so they couldn't find Fernando got a little bit better situated, and so he wasn't going to come to Mexico, and none of the royal families wanted to do it either, and so Iturbide was appointed by I can't remember who, the first emperor of Mexico, and he was very popular with the people because of this last thing about everybody got to be a citizen, but he was actually became very unpopular because of his popularity with the ordinary people. He was actually unpopular with the ruling class, and so he was exiled and abdicated in 1823 and exiled to Europe. And he returned in 1824, and within a week he was arrested and executed. And so they didn't really mess around.
Mhm.
What do you want to say about him?
No, he was shrewd. He played his cards very well. For this, on the Plan de Iguala, he came out ahead. He made a deal with the insurgents, with the folks who really wanted to independence from Spain, and he got a deal basically saying, "Look, we can make a deal here," because he really was some kind of pro monarchy, pro loyal, just kind of thing going. He says, I can be pro monarchy, but I don't have to be pro monarchy Spain, you know. So give me a chance to run the show here. And he convinced Hidalgo and others. There's a famous picture where Santana and others are entering Mexico City. He convinced some of the biggest shots of independence movement and royalists as well for him to become emperor, and he did. So he played his cards very well. So I would say that he's shrewd.
Only for a little while.
Well, it was tough, right? We will see later on that it can be difficult in Mexico to at this point in time to be consistent anything. So yeah,
And clearly his information in 1824 that prompted him to return was faulty because they didn't waste any time.
yeah.
So we're going to look at medals by two different engravers. The first one is Pedro Juan Maria de Guerrero. Um, the piece on the left has his portrait and it's signed by Guerrero in silver, and the piece on the left is the reverse. I think it's quite interesting. It shows presumably Iturbide.
Iturbide.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
reaching out to an allegorical figure who, appears to be indigenous. And it says on the back in Latin, for religion and patriotism.
Hmm.
What do you want to say about these guys?
Yeah, well, Guerrero was an interesting person. I mean, so the next two engravers we're going to talk about, Guerrero and Gordillo, are they saw. But by the way, there is a whole host of engravers in Mexico City, of course. Sorry, in Mexico proper, not Mexico City. Uh, Guerrero and Gordillo, the next one that we're gonna see, are sort of the kind of well known because they might not have been the best, but they designed medals for big occasions. Like Guerrero, we don't have that medal here. I didn't see it at the mint, but he designed the medal for the of the three grantees or the tres garantes, which is what we discussed before, where Iturbide convinced the rebels to join him and allow him to be emperor. But Guerrero designed that medal, which is very well known. It comes on occasion. It comes up on occasion. You used to buy these things for 60, $70. Now they sell for hundreds of dollars. Guerrero kind of fell from favor after independence, and so he started issuing his own medals, and he started making a living doing those medals. At one point in time, I found a document, actually a study where it's discussed that Guerrero. So times were tough in Mexico. There was no silver was being extracted because of conflicts and whatnot. There was no money circulating, and to pay the troops, he sent a project to the authorities that he was willing, and he sent the sketches to design letter money. And that was kind of weird for a guy who has been doing these beautiful medals. But his reasoning was, look, nobody's going to make fake letter coins, uh, and these coins of letter can be redeemed later for the real deal once the conflicts are settled. And so we know he sent the project. It was received by a junta, meaning a board of some sort, and they didn't give it the light of day, of course. Guerrero kind of went into the sunset. He designed beautiful medals, as you can see here, but he didn't have the heel, pull, so to speak, or political savvy, I would say. Yeah.
Artistically, I think these are good medals. They're not great medals like Heal's medals, which
Yeah.
were, really, the portraits on there are really spectacular. This is a good portrait, but it's not in
Yeah.
the same league as far as I'm concerned.
Mhm.
But I like the reverse on this one. It's a nice medal. Let's go on to the next guy, Gordillo.
Yeah.
Here, this one on the left is, a proclamation medal for Iturbide. So he was doing them as well, or people were doing it. And then the one on the uh, um, the right is for the Empress. What do you want to say about Gordillo?
Well, Gordillo was, I mean, Gordillo, Gil Guerrero are kind of exemplify what the engravers were, you know, in a between what is it called, a place on a hard rock or something like this, right? They needed to be in good terms with the kings and queens and the rulers of the moment at this time, Iturbide, so they could do their work and earn a living. Gordillo, unfortunately, he was, if you were to put in the three of them, you would say Hill was the greatest engraver, Gordillo was the second one. There were others, by the way, but we're just talking about these three. And then there was Guerrero. But Gordillo had a little problem, meaning he was born in Spain. And so he was an engraver for the Republicans and for Iturbide during the empire. And eventually he was put in some kind of blacklist saying you cannot function at the mint because you are, you are too close to you. You have your country in your heart or something like this. This was in 1826. Uh, but somehow the guy managed to continue working at the mint. And in 1830, he was still listed as an engraver, as the main engraver of the Mexico Mint. So even though he was born in Spain and there were attempts to push him out, somehow he managed. And this is what I say: these guys were political animals too, right? To a degree, they have to play the cards right. So, anyways, Gordillo was a very well-known engraver too, and beautiful medals coming from him. And Ana Maria Huarte was Iturbide's wife. I believe she died in Philadelphia, of all places.
On the Veracruz medal, it's the same reverse as on Carlos III's proclamation medal, which must be the symbol of Veracruz.
Just to show you, Gordillo was actually formed in Seville. And Seville was a very important, sorry, Michael. And Seville was a very important mint in Spain. As you know, everything that came from the Americas, every ship that sailed from Spain went through Seville, or all the records are in Seville. And then he was trained in Seville. He learned there to be engraver. He was then sent to as an assistant engraver to the Madrid mint. Then the position of engraver in Seville was open, and he lost that. And he lost it because political reasons. Somebody else got the position. That's when the opportunity came to Mexico City, to go to Mexico City, and then he left for Mexico City. And I would say, it is said that Gordillo didn't see his wife for 20 years. His wife didn't want to go to Mexico City, so he left. I think that they reunited later, but you know,
It
it
would
might
be
have been a
interesting
good
to,
thing. It might have been a good thing for the two of them, because there is records that they didn't get along. So
yeah, yeah. It would be interesting to look at medals from the Seville Mint of this time to see what they
yeah.
chose instead. Um,
So Gordillo became eventually the director of the Royal Academy of San Carlos. So
okay. So,
yeah, yeah, no, these guys were, they were trading, playing musical chairs sometimes. So
mhm, mhm. Here's another one from him. This was the Proto Medico, which you wrote about. Why don't you say something about that?
the protomedicatos were entities that regulated medical practice in the big cities. As you know, each the Americas were divided into virreinatos, right? Viceroys. There was one in Mexico City, or the Nueva España. Then there was Colombia. Then there was Santiago. Then there was De La Plata in Argentina, and each of those had these protomedicatos, right? So these were entities that regulated health issues and medical practices, and they issued this one, just like the consulate, right?
Yeah.
To
Yeah.
Yeah, so everybody wanted to do good to the king, so they will issue these medals.
Right, right. And this one, of course, is signed as well.
Yeah.
This one, it was really interesting. Oh, before we go back to Iturbide, we did see his house as we left the mint.
Oh yes.
And instead of going into it, we went to go get a beer, but we're going to have to go back there. And just to tell you a little bit more of the things we did there is Federico has a dealer there where he buys all sorts of interesting tokens. A guy named Lolly.
Lalo.
Lalo, and Lalo's got one of these medals. Not one of these, it turbid. God, I'm sorry.
Iturbide.
And I really, really want it. So next time we go back, we're gonna have to talk to that guy, and make a deal. But one of the things that was interesting, we saw on the side of one of these buildings, the Mexican eagle with the imperial crown, and that's what's really kind of interesting about these two medals is that it's an early eagle, of course. Um, I learned that this actually goes back to an Aztec legend about where to found the Mexico, where to put the capital. They were supposed to put it where they saw an eagle on a cactus eating a snake, which of course is the symbol of Mexico now, on the coat of arms and is on the many of the coins. We did see this actually on the side of Iturbide's house. And I remember you pointing that out to me. I should have taken a picture. Um, so it meant one thing to the Mexicans. To the Europeans, they saw this, well, not particularly these because there isn't a snake, but the eagle on top of the snake is a triumph of good over evil. So you're on,
Mm.
Federico. What do
Wow.
you have to say about
I love this. I love these medals and the coins that have the eagle with the crown. I mean, of course, they're a symbol of Iturbide empire, but aesthetically, at least for me, they're very appealing. But they might not be very good, but it's out of the time. It's out of times, but nice. Yeah.
Yeah, the one on the left by Gordillo, I think, is really a nice looking piece.
Yeah. Yeah, you can see the styles and the quality of the work here, right? Between Guerrero and Gordillo. The eagle on the left has more details. The wings are, the crown, even the crown. I don't know. I think that the crown is more aesthetically appealing to me. Yeah.
Higher relief too, I think.
Yeah.
Yes. All right, so we're going to Napoleon. Um, in skipping ahead 40 years, the French invaded Mexico, and when Napoleon III was in charge, because Mexico owed a lot of money to France, and they fought a battle in Puebla, and the Mexican army won, which doesn't make any sense. Why? I wish I knew it was on the reverse of this. Um, because what it says here is that this medal is about this battle. So it doesn't make sense to me.
Actually, there were two battles. The first one, the Mexicans won, but
Okay.
eventually the French took over Puebla.
All right. So this must be for that one. Okay. My
Of course,
research wasn't very good.
you
I
know,
don't know that much about Mexican history. I've learned more about Mexican history in this project than I ever knew before. So, but I'm still learning. This one's by a French engraver, Alfred Borel, probably made in at Monet de Paris. But Napoleon installed Maximilian of Habsburg as emperor in 1864. But the French forces eventually withdrew, and that was Max's demise. And we'll talk about that because they had a bunch of these medals from him. He was the younger brother of the Hungarian Emperor Franz Joseph. He wasn't particularly competent. He was the head of the Austrian Navy, and he failed. He lost a bunch of ships. Um, he became the Emperor of Mexico through some kind of deal. Um, they thought he was a conservative, but he turned out to be a liberal, and so he lost their support. And eventually, he was executed by a firing squad, and we'll see a painting of that that's famous. But interestingly, there's a numismatic part to his demise, in that he gave each of the executioner a gold coin and and gave them his forgiveness. I know you had something to say about Max.
no, if there was ever a guy that were rumors and I don't know, innuendo or gossip around, there was this. I went to a tour of Chapultepec Castle, which is he was there. He resided there for a bit, and so he slept. He and his wife didn't sleep in the same room. Uh, and the guy told me, "Oh, he was bisexual, man." And I actually did a research on this, and it was very customary for well-to-do couples not to sleep in the same room. There's no proof that the guys were bisexual, but if you read history books, anything from Wikipedia to books, there are rumors that he didn't have children with his wife. By the way, he adopted two of Iturbide's kids. Uh, but he and his wife never had children, and they say that he had a venereal disease and blah blah blah. There's no proof of that either. Then other rumors having children with somebody from Puebla. There's no proof of that, to my knowledge. So poor Maximilian, not only he died with the firing squad in front of him, but the guy is the gossip about him is amazingly big. the quantity of gossip. So for good, for what it is.
So here are some of the medals. They're kind of small and uninspiring, but they were there. Um, I don't think there's too much to say about them. I mean, had a
Yeah.
good, had a good beard. Um, this one is signed by two people, Navion and Ocampo. You know anything about them?
Nope.
Yeah. Here's his wife, Charlotte, who was, at this point, all these people were related to each other, and so she was Queen Victoria's um, cousin. And as you mentioned, he adopted the grandsons.
Oh, the grandsons. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I found.
Okay. I
I
thought it
think
was
that's.
his kids, but yeah.
Here's a medal with the two of them as a couple. Um, Neither one looks particularly happy, but of course that's the the style of photography at the time because the exposure was so long they didn't want you to just smile because you couldn't hold it. This medal is was engraved by Jean Verden, who was a German who moved to Paris, and so I suspect this medal was made in Paris at Musée de Paris, and eventually he ended up in Belgium. There's a book, the classic book on medalists of all types, as a 8 volume set by a guy named Forer, Forrer. And what they said about him is that his most impressive medal actually was Maximilian's inauguration medal, which I don't think this is that one. But anyway, and this is the famous painting by Edouard Manet, was one of the early, considered an impressionist, although I never quite saw him that way. But this is what he said: I forgive everyone, and I ask everyone to forgive me. May my blood, which is about to be spilled, end the bloodshed which is experienced in my new motherland. Long live Mexico, long live its independence. And like I said, each one of these guys got a gold coin. Um, there's a couple of versions of this painting. I've seen a few of them. It's considered very famous. I never really liked it because it's so macabre. There is supposed to be a monument. Um, there was one built on the site of his execution that may not be there anymore. This is a picture that I could find from like the 1880s. You can see, there's a horse cart here, and there's the medal here that you know, maybe like that one for the statue, which was, to raise funds for a monument, but I could not find any such monument. It's clearly, it doesn't appear to be this one that I found here. Did you have anything to say here?
No, I think I'm done saying things.
All right, so this goes to another trip of mine. This is a medal um, in the museum in Mexico that shows a statue of Maximilian that actually in Trieste, in downtown Trieste. Um, it's actually kind of a nice medal for a statue like this. And then this is his house. I did take this picture. And my first reaction was, geez, he should have stayed here because it's this beautiful house, in Trieste on the Adriatic, looking out to the sea, and it's just spectacular. It was a great house. It was a museum now. All right, so now we're getting towards the end here. I know it's late. We've been going almost an hour. There was a big case about the centennial of the independence and its medal, and you can see there's some proofs there of what the artist made. The artist was a guy named Manuel Centurion, which is kind of an interesting name. This is the one side. It shows Hidalgo, which is this guy, being crowned by the angel, and who's bearing the trumpet of fame. And on the left is peace, the woman be peace with her olive branch, and on the right is law, with her tablets. And in the background, you see the Mexican cathedral that Federico took me to see, and then one of the big volcano. Do you have anything to say about this medal?
No, except that when I read a description of this medal, and the person who wrote a very short article on this said that you could still see components of European design here, even though Mexico is independent already. It's a couple, an emperor, and so on and so forth have been. But you see all these angels with trumpets on the skies and whatever. This is very European. There is nothing native here in the sense. I don't mean native in the indigenous sense, but really sort of.
It's also not very it's not very similar to contemporary metals in France, which is really into the Art Nouveau style. This is a very classical kind of
Yeah,
design.
yeah, exactly. So,
Here's the other side, uh, showing an uprising, an important event in the Mexican Independence War with Hidalgo again, leading the charge, with a church in the background.
uh-huh.
And like I said, in the exhibit, they actually had the pieces that the artists had made that they used the reduction machine to actually make the metals. The metals are here in the background there. So those were kind of interesting. So how to summarize this? Well, we saw a lot of stuff. Um, Many of them were, I think, are really beautiful metals and really high quality. Some of the symbolism, especially the eagles that we saw, persists to this day. And Federico has pointed out that these metals reflect power, especially the political power. And even when they were just brief periods, these were powerful people. And the rulers were, either establishing themselves or were established. So it's kind of fun. And I think they're really rare, but they're out there. Um, you just have to really, it's one of these things where, when you see one and you really want it and you can afford it, you got to act because it's going to be a long time before you find another one. Did you have any closing thoughts, Federico?
nope. Just to say that even though we see beautiful metals, they still needed to be approved by the powers that be. The engravers had to adjust to that, and sometimes things didn't happen. For example, I forgot. I think the first Mexican president after Maximilian Guerrero sent him a design, Victoria. He sent him a design, and the guy said, "No, I don't want to have a medal, and I don't like this one in particular, because medals were made for kings and queens, and I'm not one. So, done with that." Of course, later on, there have been hundreds of medals depicting Mexican presidents left and right. But the point being is that even these folks who were great artists, painters, sculptors, engravers, they were at the mercy of the powers that be when it came down to putting stuff on a piece of metal. And so they managed to make beautiful stuff, but they were subject to approval, right? And like now, people just make medals.
My closing thought here is, Mexico City is a really interesting place. A wonderful cuisine, wonderful people, lots and lots of history. Um, Big city, lots and lots of things going on all the time. We really enjoyed it, um, especially at the end.
Yeah, we were there in uh, yeah, same
This is
thing.
a bar. This
Yeah,
is not at the Mint.
yeah.
Where's the beer?
What's
Uh,
that?
we must have been waiting for it. I don't know, but we had a beer there. It was good. It was good. It was, numismatic is hard. Numismatics is hard work, and so we must have spent like 4 or 5 hours in those two museums.
Easy.
Yeah, easy. Um, and I'd go back in a heartbeat. I think there's plenty more to see.
Yeah,
Oh,
and that's it.
Oh, thank
wonderful.
you.
Thank you. Anyone have any? Well, everybody's muted, but
Adrian says that calamina is zinc.
or a zinc
Yeah,
mineral.
and
Yeah.
probably that metal was made of zinc, I should imagine. So thanks so much.
You're welcome.
This is Mike. I'd like to say something. Hey, Federico, you said, I think you made a mistake on who the president was who came back after Maximilian left. It was actually, wasn't it Benito Juarez?
No, no, no. I can find the date right here. There was somebody else. Maybe Adrian knows. I'm sure he does. I think it was Victoria Adrian. His last name was Victoria,
Yes,
right?
Guadalupe Victoria.
Guadalupe Victoria, yes.
That's right.
And he told Guerrero he didn't want a medal made for him. Thank you very much. I don't want it. Yeah. So
I think we're particularly interested in what you guys have to say. You know, like I said, I don't know hardly anything about Mexican history, much less, this was, me diving headfirst into Mexican medals. And, undoubtedly we got a few things wrong, but certainly we loved them.
Those gill medals were beautiful.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
that would be that would fit in anybody's collection, I should think.
Hey, can I make another comment? You mentioned that when the medals from the Iturbide had the crown on the eagle, and you liked that. That same image was used when Maximilian was the emperor. If you look at the Mexican coins during that period, the eagle also had a crown on it. It's during the two emperor periods they did that, I guess.
mhm,
Thank you.
mhm.
That's interesting to know. I didn't know that.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was
Congratulations, Michael and Federico. It was a very nice and uh, excellent presentation. I learned a lot of things about this medal. First, Michael, you presented a medal of San Miguel el Grande.
Mhm.
You assigned it to Oaxaca State, and it's not correct. It's San Miguel de Allende or San Miguel el Grande is in Guanajuato State. In fact, there are a lot of expats, Canadians and gringos living there. I
Oh,
recommend to visit San Miguel
yeah,
el Grande.
my neighbor moved there actually. They're gringos. Um,
Yes.
Yep.
I'm going to share again just so we make sure we know which
Adrian,
one. Is that this?
Sí,
Was that this medal here?
Oaxaca is Guanajuato.
but I think
Over there.
the person was in Oaxaca. So I did a little bit of research because I thought the same thing, Adrian. I thought that this would be San Miguel Allende,
San
but
Miguel Allende before was called San Miguel el Grande.
okay, but let's. I'm not sure we can settle this now, but I will agree with you in principle because that's what I thought. But when I saw when I looked for Alferez Jose Maria Loreto, who is the issuer of this medal, I found him in Oaxaca, not in San Miguel Allende, in a place called San Miguel el Grande as well. So let's, I will agree with Adrian that there is a strong possibility this could be from Guanajuato. My wife has relatives in Guanajuato, having in San Miguel Allende. It's very nice, and you're right, it's full of expats. expats.
Yes.
It's also beautiful. It's a beautiful place.
Yeah, my next door neighbor moved there. My understanding is it's sort of in the mountains and a little bit cooler.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
It has a great weather
Ah.
the whole year.
Yeah, I
The
remember that's
properties
why
are
they
very
moved there.
In fact, Federico, this is my first time I learned the San Miguel el Grande in Oaxaca. I had never seen before.
I found a link.
Right.
Let me find out more. I think it has to do with the person who issued the coin rather than anything else. He was alferez, this or that. I can send you. We can send you. We can figure this out. I'm sure, but I'm not 100% sure. This could very well be San Miguel, of course, San Miguel Allende. Yes.
The
In fact, you choose a very complex theme or topic to talk about. It's really a challenge to talk about the Mexican or the colonial Mexican medals.
Yeah.
So-
The next comment is about the Agustin de Iturbide Empire. The Iturbide's Mexican empires the limits were from California to Costa Rica. Costa Rica was part of the Mexican Empire. So Nicaragua, Honduras struck medals related to Iturbide empires.
Mhm,
These medals are very, very rare,
mhm.
much rarer than the Mexican cousins.
Yep. I suggested we put some of those medals in our presentation, but I was vetoed. I have a couple of those. So.
I thought we went too long. But that I'll take the heat on that one.
But you know what? That's a good topic for a talk.
Yes.
I have 3 of those medals. I have one from Guatemala, one from Nicaragua, one from Honduras. Costa Rica never issued medals for Iturbide. And the reason was that Costa Rica didn't want to be part of the Iturbide Empire. And there was indecision. There were the pro-royalists and then the pro-republican forces. And before Iturbide fell, there was a civil war in Costa Rica. One battle, nothing like the Mexican Civil War or the U.S. Civil War. And after one battle, they just settled and say, "Okay, let's go Republican here. We don't want to be part of the Iturbide Empire." But yes, you're right. Those medals, even though there's one from Nicaragua, from León. There's one from Honduras, Olancho, I believe. And there are a couple from Guatemala City and Antigua. Those more likely were not made either in Honduras or Nicaragua. They didn't have a mint. So they were made either in Guatemala or Mexico City.
Yes. Yes, you are
That's
right.
a good talk, actually. That's a great talk for this group.
See, in fact, every medal has a solid presentation for every medal.
Yes.
My next comment is about the idiot or stupid Ferdinand VII. I don't know if in Spain is one famous because he lost the American possessions or by his big penis. He has he has a big penis, believe it or not. I think it's more famous for that the loss of the viceroys of America.
Yeah.
Congratulations, Michael and Federico. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. It means a lot.